Hi, it's Martin from the Accelerator team at Robson Laidler, and we're here with Helen Ingham, who runs a business, Be Voice Confident. Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Tell us very briefly what you do, and then we'll get started on what it means to be voice confident.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks for having me. So Be Voice Confident is a voice coaching service, also voice therapy. But the voice coaching part of it is I help people who have got issues with their confidence when they're speaking, help break down some of the skills that I know are really important when we're speaking, break them down, practice them a lot to enable them to reach their potential and be heard and seen as they'd like to be.
Okay, great. So, and the idea here is to give people some clues as to why people aren't confident, and then some little takeaways to try and improve that confidence. Because if you're in business, which our audience is, a lot of what you do is it's people to people. Mm-hmm. People buy from people. People want to believe the person that are speaking. If you sound like you're not confident, people might take something from that you maybe don't believe it yourself, or there could be a whole host of issues here. So being able to project and talk confidently to someone is quite an important thing in business, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Let's start with the beginning then. Why do you think some people aren't confident?
Well, we've all got different makeups, different personality types, which we should all be super proud of our different personality types and the differences there. But we also have a wide range of experience that we've grown up with. For example, I grew up in a very quietly spoken family. There wasn't kind of much need to be talking over each other. There wasn't a lot of experience of doing that kind of debating, whereas other families, potentially lots of children, lots of noise.
Arguing a lot,
it's all to do with how you kind of
that's what we call debating in my house.
Exactly.
Arguing
a lot.
Yeah,
exactly. And those experiences, plus lots during your schooling and your formative years of, have you had positive experiences?
Bad teacher, bad boss. Be quiet, what a silly idea to...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you put yourself out there thinking about being at school, for example, and the teacher's asking a question to the class, and you know what to say, you know what the answer is. Are you going to put your hand up? Are you not? And sometimes when you do put your hand up and put yourself out there, be vulnerable, the response often, or can be, yeah, maybe that's right or wrong, but even if it was right, actually I didn't hear you, can you say it again?
Yeah.
And that's the worst reward. That's not a reward for contributing. So it's kind of, that can kind of really impact on your self-confidence, and you'll then go, I'm not doing that again, because that was too
didn't go well.
It didn't go well.
Yeah, it's the same with, I suppose you've got the emotional side, people may be less kind of aware of, but on the physical side, if you touch the fire and it's hot and it burns, you don't touch it again.
Exactly.
It's like, it was uncomfortable or it hurt, you don't do it again.
Yeah.
If something hurts your feelings, or was emotionally a bad experience, you're less likely to give it another go, aren't you?
Absolutely.
The problem is though, like you say, if you're in business, especially if you've got to sell your business, you can't avoid speaking to people.
Yeah.
I know things are moving online now, and there's a host of different things, but somewhere you're going to have to speak to people and be able to confidently sell them on what you're trying to do, haven't you?
You do, and there's a whole continuum of, one-to-one speaking with a client, making good first impressions, which when you are speaking face-to-face with someone, or even on Zoom as well, online, how you come across vocally, verbally, obviously the words you choose, but how you got good eye contact, whether you're kind of open to listening and really kind of portraying yourself with confidence. That's really important. So there's the one-to-one stuff, but then of course you've got, within a work situation, can you contribute verbally in a meeting? How do you feel about
in a group
meeting, so in front of other people, your peers, and then all the way further on to giving presentations to conferences. I mean, you're not always going to do all of those, but there's definitely some of that you're going to need to do in business.
Your audition on the X Factor.
Yeah, exactly. I know, that's definitely at that end of the continuum.
But again, we're not aiming for that, are we? We're just aiming to be able to get the thing you want to say. At the root here, we're just trying to get the thing you need, the message you want to communicate across.
Exactly.
We're not talking about singing and dancing here. We're talking about just being able to communicate the message, aren't we?
Effectively, yeah.
Which surely we can all agree is an essential part of
It is.
most people's life, isn't it?
Yeah, and that kind of links a little bit to when we're trying to get a message across, our brain in the moment is expending all its energy, or the vast majority of its energy, in choosing the words, selecting the order that you're putting them in there in order to get that message across. What we're not thinking of in the moment is how we're doing that. That's something that kind of has to get learned and practiced. With some people it feels more natural, but it's usually because they've had more opportunity to practice as they've been growing up. So that's the piece, it's the how.
So you mentioned briefly on there about why this is an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And we mentioned first impressions and the fact that people buy from people.
Yeah.
Is there anything else in there? Is it just that? I don't know. Is there more to it than that, or can people infer other things from someone who doesn't present themselves confidently? I mean, could it be deemed to be, well, they looked away? I watched an episode of CSI. If you look to the left, it means you lie. And I mean, you know, like people could read all kinds in you, couldn't they?
They can do, yeah.
They might just assume you're not confident.
Yeah. And if they assume you're not confident, do they then extrapolate that you're also maybe not competent in what you're doing or what you're trying to sell? Or and the other piece, so we're thinking about how our customers or how our clients receive us, so how the listener receives us, and that's incredibly important. But from the speaker, from the individual, you're not going to grow so much if you're not feeling that you get that feedback. You can identify when your listener's gone, when you've lost them, you know?
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel good either. So how does it make us feel as the speaker to speak confidently? Does that kind of help to build our self-confidence, and then everything comes easier? So it's kind of, it's a two-way street. I think we can grow more.
So actually we're going to come on to some ideas of what people can do to try and present themselves as more voice confident. It's not about pretending.
No.
It's about safe steps to build the experience to becoming more confident.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a point here about if you're in a team and you've got a member of your team who, so let's say you're the senior to someone and they're not contributing, is there something you can do as the receiver then?
I think
so
yeah.
Speak up.
Yeah.
You know, like you've said that doesn't help. I'll have to stop doing that with my boys. But are there, before we get into the things you can look after for yourself, is there things you can do to encourage people to find their voice?
I think so, and I think there's that kind of communication inclusivity. So being able to, often a quieter contributor or a quieter person might be waiting for that invitation to be let into a meeting. So they want to be part of the space, but they don't have the confidence. And that's something that I work with, is how do you actually interject into a conversation or into a meeting? But it's also the responsibility of the manager, of the more senior person there, to ensure that there are ways of inviting people in. There are spaces for people who are thinking a little bit longer and thinking and processing information a little in different ways.
So the way you ask for feedback needs to adapt to the people
in your team.
It's not all Wolf of Wall Street, you know, crash helmets fighting each other on the market floor. You might have people who go, has anyone got anything else?
Yeah.
Because you haven't asked them specifically, they won't volunteer anything. And as a manager, you might go and think, they never contribute. You've got someone there with great ideas that you're missing out on. It doesn't make sense that just the people who've got the louder voices have all the good ideas. That's never the case. Yeah. So you're just missing out on 50% of the good ideas. So we during the start of lockdown a couple of years ago now, we actively started asking everyone for feedback rather than just, does anybody have feedback? It does make a big difference, It does make a big difference. So anyway then, what can people do to start building this confidence? You mentioned you've got 5 areas where people can think about things that affect how you come across in your confidence. Do you want to take us through that?
In terms of, and this is vocal confidence, so it's how we make the sound, how we physically make the sound, and how we come across confidently. And I'll talk in a minute about the fact that it is a physical thing quite often, and we're building muscle memory and we're kind of making things automatic that way.
Does that mean the more you practice it, more
Absolutely.
routine it
The more
becomes.
automatic it becomes, the less cognitive load, the less it's kind of, you're having to really focus on it, it becomes normal. But the in terms of, if you can break down the sort of the subsystems of what's happening when we are confident speaking, we've got good breath support, okay? We're making sure that posture's kind of, it's important to be open, and I know you're kind of doing that. We're just not slouching too much. So when we're doing that, we're really restricting the airflow. So breath is the power of our voices, and so we need to make sure that we've got space for that, okay?
On a basic physical level, literally, you exhale as you talk, don't you?
You literally...
Is that why people run out of breath in sentences?
Absolutely. Because they're running out of breath, and what we tend to do when we get to the end of a breath and we can feel that we're getting to the end of the breath, we kind of speed up a little bit as well to try and squeeze all of those little words out, and then it gets really tight and it's like... And then
That's a good example. You've done that before, haven't you?
I've done that before.
Yeah.
So making sure you've got space to replenish and take a breath, that impacts as well on the second part, which is the speed of how fast you're talking. And again, that can be influenced by lack of breath support, but also anxiety kicks in big time, and being centre of attention and speaking something, often if you're less confident, you want to be out of that situation as quickly as possible. So often that translates into a rapid rate of speech.
Or a shorter answer, or
just
well,
like
actually it's
quickly
complex.
get out.
I don't want to talk for that long, so I'll give a short, a simple version instead of the full answer. Or
absolutely.
Right, okay.
And then the reaction to that sometimes is either, oh, can you say more on that? And you're like, oh no, I've still got to keep talking.
Which creates more anxiety.
More anxiety.
Yeah.
Or when you're speaking really quickly, it's more difficult to understand. Your listeners having to kind of process all of those words very rapidly. They haven't got those little pauses where they can go, okay, I've just processed that. So that can definitely be a factor, and anxiety can lead into that. So we've got volume as well. So when we're talking with a really quiet voice and people can't hear you.
Sorry, speak up.
I don't want to speak up, So again, you're getting asked to repeat. So by having the confidence, or at least practicing speaking louder in the first place, actually makes you more successful, which gives you more positive experiences. So we've got that. We've got clarity of speech, so articulation. So are we moving our lips and our tongue and our teeth?
Is this where actors famously say, they've got sayings they like?
Yes, they've
stretch
got their
all
warm-ups. Yeah. So they warm up the voices, but they also warm up all the muscles of articulation too, do their tongue twisters and all that kind of stuff. So you've got lots of factors that if I say to you, okay, in order to speak more confidently, you not only have to think about what you're saying, which is massive, that's the big communication.
Yeah, if you say a load of rubbish.
No one's going to buy anything.
You might say a load of rubbish confidently.
That's not going to work that way around either.
I've met a lot of salespeople who they're talking rubbish, but they're deliberate. You almost buy it. Well, it doesn't make any sense, but wow, they're selling it.
I'm convinced. Exactly. Yeah. So you've got that communication piece that you're trying to communicate the message. But if I then also say to you, at the same time as doing that, I want you to make sure that you're sitting up so you've got good breath support. I want you to keep your pace slow. I want you to make sure that your mouth is moving a lot.
Got enough breath in the system.
Got enough breath. You're loud enough. That's too much. You can't do that online.
And if you're already trying to think of the words to use to formulate a complex topic, that you're already a little, from the competence side, you might be already stretching yourself on competence.
Yeah.
And then you're saying, and you've got all these new things to learn. So that could be overwhelming for people, couldn't it?
Yeah.
What do they do then? Do they do their mouth exercises in the mirror in the morning when they're like brushing their teeth, or?
Yeah, you can do some of those kind of things. I mean, basically with the voice coaching, you would break down, depending on each individual, it might be that volume is the biggest thing for somebody. Or
presumably it'd be too loud as well, can you?
Yeah. And therefore it's kind of like some awareness training really in terms of what are people often standing away from you when you're talking as well, just kind of monitoring that.
Have you met me mother? Is that the case?
Poor mother, I have met your mother. Yeah. But so I know No more comments on there. But you can be too loud. In confidence issues, you're generally too quiet. But it's breaking down, what does it feel like, if we take volume, what does it feel like if I say something loud? It's going to feel odd. It's going to feel unnatural because you're not used to using the muscles to that extent. You're not used to bringing those vocal folds together with, force is probably the wrong word, but you're not used to doing that. You're not used to taking such a deep breath. So it's going to feel weird. So you need to practice that and remember what it feels like, not necessarily describing, I can feel my throat feels this amount of tight or whatever, but can you remember that feeling inside, what it feels like? When you just make that sound, just with a sound, so even with a ooh or an e, can you say an e quietly? Can you do e?
It's almost like scales, but volume scales.
Volume scales, just kind of how does it feel when you're doing that? Getting used to that, and then increasing the hierarchy of challenge really. So then you move on to what we would call rote speech, so days of the week, quietly versus really loudly.
So you literally say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Yeah,
Friday,
yeah.
trying to articulate them all in the right volume.
Yes.
All in one breath,
Yeah, just you're practicing it.
It's simple. People aren't learning any unusual. Yeah.
Exactly, and the thing is with that is that if you're doing days of the week, the cognitive load is really low. You're not thinking about what you're saying.
Because most people have that down, don't they?
Most people have that down.
Most business owners know the names of each of the days that they live through.
Yeah, mostly.
I did have a couple of business owners, it was quite funny, and these two know who they are, who one of them said, so how do I work that out monthly? So I divided by 54. I was like, it's not 54 weeks in the year. Looked at his brother, had a good laugh, and he went, everyone knows there's 53. I was like, this is an otherwise very successful pair of people running a very successful business, but
but some of those foundation pieces of knowledge just didn't get corrected.
But most people kind of know the days of the week, don't they?
Exactly, most people, that's a fairly safe thing to do. And then you move from that to, say, reading something aloud, short phrases, but you're reading it, so again, you're not having to think of it, but you're altering how you say it.
And the good thing there is, as long as you're reading simple text, you're not reading, like Brian Cox on thermodynamics or something.
No.
Reading simple text, there's no cognitive load on the thing you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then you can put your attention onto varying how you're saying it. And then from there you kind of move up to, I would kind of go from those just the sounds to the rote speech, those days of the week, months of the year, reading something aloud. Then my favourite thing to practice is I'm a big fan of a cup of coffee, so I know what my coffee order is. That's not a great...
You haven't got to think
I've
what
got to
you're
think
going
of that,
yeah.
But I can try it out with somebody else, and I can try it in a situation, so I can...
Do you mean literally ordering coffee in a coffee shop?
Coffee in a coffee shop, yeah, but using a
because
slightly
it can't go
different...
wrong either, can it?
Well, no. It can't. You can. It's very low risk.
I imagine this is the kind of thing actors do if they've got to do an American accent. It's like, well, I'll just try ordering coffee in an American. Yeah, I'll put the New York accent on and
see what happens.
What's the worst that happens? Yeah.
I know you might get the wrong coffee,
but which again, it doesn't matter. It's low. So actually, that's interesting about practicing these things in a low risk, safe environment.
Yeah.
Short bursts of conversation with strangers rarely are that important, are they?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it could be how you order your ticket on the bus.
Exactly.
It could be how you order your takeout over the phone. It could be
how you greet the person in reception in the morning, and you might use the same phrase, but in a feeling more confident. Can you give it a try?
Yeah.
You know. So
because there's the old saying in sales training as well about you can tell if the person on the phone is smiling.
Yeah.
And is that true? Do you think you could tell if you're listening to someone? Do you think you could pick up whether they were smiling, or is it just that smile portrays a confidence? They're prepared for it.
It's an interesting question. In my training as a speech and language therapist, we had to do, and especially with voice, trying to determine tongue position and mouth position and stuff just based on auditory cues. It's tricky, but yeah, you can tell an awful lot from the sound of a voice, as we all do when we listen to the radio and we can't see anybody.
Yeah.
You know, the impressions and what we kind of derive from that. It's always quite funny when we see photos of people on the radio and we realise we got it a bit wrong. But
who's that?
Yeah, exactly. But yes, you can, absolutely, you can do that. But going back to the maybe using your voice in a coffee shop or the low risk examples, it gives the individual who's speaking a positive experience of those interactions. And so, when we started at the beginning saying that why is it a problem, and maybe people haven't had those positive experiences of speaking in front of strangers or in groups, we can build those positive experiences and those memories alongside also practicing that new muscle memory.
So the next time you're in a position where something needs to happen, you've got these experiences of these easy wins. You've created your own playlist of successes.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know what it feels like. You can remember what it feels like.
Yeah.
So
because we all know someone. I mean, there's people in my life who will get in after being out somewhere and they'll go, I wish I'd. It's like, why didn't you just say? Like, they wouldn't even say it to me. I was like, why did you not say it to me? Or they've missed out on things because they didn't volunteer, they didn't put their hand up, they didn't take the sweet.
Yeah.
It could be, something as simple as that.
Yeah.
And
it's not always because they don't want to.
Yeah.
And the voice, you kind of, as somebody that you know is doing that, the person themselves can also be giving themselves a really hard time.
Yeah.
Why didn't I do that? Yet again, I missed that opportunity. So yeah, it can get frustrating.
So we've talked about what people can do for themselves. We touched briefly on if you've got people in your team who you think, well, they never contribute. It might be that they're not confident in contributing. Are there exercises that team leaders can challenge their team to? I mean, is there something you could approach with someone or not? Could I say, well, Helen, you seem like you don't contribute. Is it because you're not confident raising your voice, or is it that you don't think you've got... I mean, how would I start that conversation? Or should I?
It's difficult. I mean, obviously on a one-to-one basis.
Because if you get that wrong, you just push someone further down the road.
I think probably...
Oh yeah, I don't mean, can you come up on stage and tell us why you never say anything?
In the middle of the meeting, why don't you talk to me?
Give this person a mic, please. Why do you never speak?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think in sort of one-to-one supervision, are there any other ways that you... I mean, obviously asking, are there other ways that you would find it really useful to be able to contribute? Do you find that it would be useful after a meeting that you'd like to contribute via email or something once you've had a chance to do that? But what is it that how would you like to do it? Because in the vast number of cases, that individual is not going to be sat there with nothing and no ideas. They're going to be sat there frustrated that they can't contribute. They're going to be thinking that others are judging them, that they're not contributing. And they're also very likely highly attuned to observing what other people are doing. And so just saying, just have a think, is there any way that you would be facilitated to
Any
contribute?
other ways to give feedback than having to shout for your space at the table?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But shouting for your space at the table sometimes needs to be done too. And the other thing that I find quite useful with people there is practicing, again, using like a sentence stem and a way, like teaching us a way to actually interject.
Well, what does that mean, a sentence stem? So is that a bit like having a template for your first 3 words of it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what I think is, if you practice saying, well, what I think is, then...
Because when
is that what you mean?
Exactly, because you're in a meeting situation or you want to claim your space, it's also reassuring everybody that they have an equal right to that conversation space. But you have to claim that space with your voice.
Yeah.
And that's the bit where you're feeling particularly underconfident with. But if you can claim that space with, that's a great point, can I just add? If that's your phrase, okay?
Because that buys you. Now, it doesn't sound long, but in your mind,
buys you
you've ran through a week's worth of thoughts.
Exactly.
Over those 6 or 7 words, haven't you?
And it's bought you that space already.
And you're in. You've got your foot in. And
people are listening.
Yeah. And because you've got that down on autopilot, you've got time to then make sure what you're going to say is
what you want to do.
Yeah.
So that's the way. The other way, in terms of you were asking more specifically, is there anything to help facilitate other people getting involved? Just setting out some rules for the whole meeting ahead of time, and maybe there's in terms of listening and contribution, so not picking anybody out at all, but the entire meeting or group, if anyone has something to say, it's absolutely fine to let me know later. So take the pressure off a little bit there. Some cases there might be some kind of non-verbal visual, kind of the equivalent of putting your hand up, but something that's kind of, something that you can indicate.
Is there some way to like almost
could be included?
Because I presume in a meeting, if there's half a dozen people in the room, you can say, I want to hear from everyone. Now that might panic some people. Is there a better way to do that?
That way would be fine, and it would be a really nice stepping stone again, if you say, I'd love to hear something from everybody. However, if you don't have anything, just say when it's your turn, I don't have anything just now.
You're not under pressure to come up with anything.
No.
But you can pass the conversation on without looking silly.
Yeah, but equally, your voice is heard for just a small amount. So that kind of builds, again, it's building a positive experience that, yes, you are centre of attention in that meeting for that few seconds of you saying, I don't have anything
and it went all right.
Yeah, and it was okay, you survived it.
And again, if you're running the meeting as the host of the meeting, don't then say, well, why have you not got anything?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, it's taking the judgment piece away.
Don't bring someone in and then pull the rug out just as they think, all right, that wasn't too bad. Why you blethering idiot?
Now you're on the spot.
We've been talking about it for an hour. What do you mean you've got nothing?
No. And just acknowledging that everyone has a different way of doing that. But I think if you can contribute without fear of judgment, it's steps. If they're saying nothing, if somebody's saying nothing, obviously ask for their individual contribution on a one-to-one situation. Other ways of contributing, but also, can you just hear a couple of seconds of their voice in the meeting? I
suppose if you're hosting the meeting, letting people know what you're going to talk about in the meeting in advance by providing an agenda is a great way, so people have got time to think. If they're, you didn't say slow thinkers. That sounds like an insult. What was the...
I think it's a different way of processing.
People who deliberate over a longer period, they want to put more deeper thinkers, not slow thinkers, sorry.
It's not slow,
deeper thinkers will want to spend more time. But equally, if you're going into a meeting and you're not sure what's going to come up, you can ask for an agenda, can't you?
Yeah.
So that might be a way to then go, well, at least I know what we're going to talk about. I've got time to practice what I might want to say.
Exactly, yeah. And I think some personality types may be a little bit more introverted or detail specific. Thinking on your feet in a meeting situation is challenging, so having that kind of heads up, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, so you put some pre-work in. Yeah.
So then if they want to contribute, you've still got those kind of, they know what they're going to be saying, and that then makes it easier to just get involved.
Excellent. Well, we've covered quite a lot there. Hopefully give people something to think about. What's the one thing people can take away if they're thinking, that was great? Obviously they can reach out and you'll be happy to help people, but if people want to just, that in itself might be a scary thing.
Yeah.
Presume you've got your receiving of queries down. You're going to make people feel comfortable.
Definitely.
But if they might just go, well, actually, I'm going to try one thing.
The one thing, in terms of being more confident, is volume's the big thing for me. It's kind of, if it's on an individual basis, identify something. I love the coffee shop idea. I think that's kind of, it's great. So just practice reading out loud, being in front of the mirror, trying those volume. What does it feel like? Remember what that feels like. And then go and order your tea or your coffee and give it a go. Just with a very slight change, and see how it makes you feel.
And then level 2 of that presumably is when they inevitably give you the wrong coffee because they're a coffee shop.
Yes.
Be bold enough to tell them it was the wrong coffee.
To say it's the wrong one. Or be bold enough and loud enough to say thank you. Even just that saying thank you loudly again at the end.
Which again is zero risk, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Zero risk. Last word, no one's ever got, what did you say? I just said thank you. I'd say calm down.
Can I say thank you like this into my boot? Just going to say thank you quietly, or thank you, it's different.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Helen. I really appreciate your time today. I hope you've got something from that, whether you're running a team and you're trying to get more from your people. There's some little tips in there. But more so if you're a person who thinks, well, your voice isn't being heard, some great tips in there, and I'm sure Helen would happily help anybody who
Definitely.
has a need in those areas. So hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope going forward you're going to think about your body language, you're going to make sure you've got enough breath to finish the sentence, you're going to think of your volume, your pacing, and all of those things. And eye contact is very important as well.
Yes.
Make sure you're looking the person in the eye so they know you're talking to them. Feel free to give us any comments, thoughts, leave reviews, reach out, email. We'll put Helen's links in the details as well. And yeah, look forward to hearing from much more confident people going forward. Thank you.